Hello. Today's lesson is 3G Welding Series Certification, Lesson 1, Introduction to the AWS Sense Documents. This is Module 4, Shielded Metal Arc Welding. The key indicator is for the students to pass the SMAW Welder Performance Qualification Test, 3G Uphill Limited Thickness test on carbon steel. The evaluation, how you're going to be evaluated in this lesson: the trainee produces sound SMAW groove welds in the 3G uphill position on carbon steel. Test assemblies are prepared according to the drawing specification and approved by the instructor in accordance with the requirements of AWS QC10, your WPS, and drawing number AWS EDU-6. Okay. Today what I'm going to try to go over is your handouts. Everybody should have their handouts in front of them, and the handouts are for the entire series. Today all we're doing is briefly going over each handout, trying to explain the information that's in it so that you can make a good decision during your test. We're going to start today with the WPS, Welding Procedure Specification. This first page basically explains that this WPS is for educational purposes only, and there's a disclaimer saying that it cannot be used as a WPS in industry in any way, shape, or form. Anytime that you're using a WPS, procedure qualification, welding procedure specification, get this going here. Basically, it's gonna allow you some essential variables, a little bit of range. There's no way you can set everything up exactly the same, so this is a document that provides the required welding variables for a specific application to ensure repeatability. That way, when the WPS gets set in motion, then everybody's welding on the same page. At least all the welding machines are set the same. Everybody's using the same base metal. You're using the same technique. You may still not end up with an acceptable weld, but at least you'll be able to try to find ways to fix the defects or discontinuities that way. One thing that you'll need to know is that we're going to be, now this WPS is set for, it has such a wide range. We could weld 60-10 or 70-18, but for your 3G test, we're going to be welding 70 series rods. We're going to run 3/32 and 1/8 inch. So right here is the variables. It says on 3/32 you can run from 70 amps to 115. On 1/8 inch you can run anywhere from 110 to 165. I like running 90 on 3/32 and 105 on 1/8 inch. That's just me. There's lots of other stuff on this document. I've got a quiz set up, so you'll need to be able to read this. Anytime that test question comes up, you need to make sure that the question is addressing the document that you're looking at. If I ask you a question about a WPS or what information might be found on the WPS, you need to be looking at the WPS. Anytime you see NA, that means it's not applicable for this particular WPS, because a lot of this information could be set up for different welding processes, GMAW or SMAW. This is an SMAW process specific WPS. There's 2 pages to your WPS. There's a cover page and then 2 pages, so 3 pages altogether. This is Sense document again. Alright, welding process. What type of welding process is acceptable under the WPS? Shielded metal arc. What method? Manual. This here will tell you what type of base metal that you should use. We're going to use STM A36. Okay. Filler metals. This is important. Filler metals. What type of welding rod are we going to use? We said we could use 60 or 70 series. Okay, but that's the classification. The specification is an AWS 5.1. Electrode F numbers is 1 through 4. F4 is 7018. Filler metals, joint design. Here's some more stuff down here at the bottom. We should know what preheat, post-heat, and interpass temperature is. Preheat is how much heat that we put on it before we weld, and post-heat is how much heat we put on it after we weld, and interpass temperature is the temperature of the piece while you're welding it. Right here it'll tell you the minimum or the maximum. Interpass temperature, just to give you an example, you need to follow along. You probably can't see this very well, so you need to be following along in your handouts. 50 degrees is the minimum, 350 degrees is the maximum. Post-weld heat treatment as welded condition. So that's your WPS. Like I said, the WPS is a document that provides the required welding variables for a specific application. This allows it to be repeatable. That way, if everybody sets everything up the same, you should come up with the same results. If you don't, it has something to do with the welder's ability to make a sound weld. The next document is your print. This document is DWG number AWS EDU-6. This is your blueprint. Okay, this is what you're building. Okay, down here, this is a blueprint. Down here, you're going to have your title block. Here's going to be your print. Here's your parts list, and up here's your notes. It's important anytime that you're working from this print that you read the notes. No way we can read this here, but read the notes that I gave you in your handouts, and it'll be specific to each one of these variables. Here it tells you how wide it is, tells you how wide the strips are, tells you what the angle is. Okay, when you put the two angles together, it becomes an included angle. Right? If you just had one of them, it's considered a bevel angle. Another thing that's important, down here at the bottom, you have your drawing number. Whenever I referenced it as DWG number AWS EDU-6, that's the drawing number. Okay? I know that's a long number, but if you had several documents, you would get familiar with trying to reference it that way. It says here, talks about tolerances. A lot of your questions on your quiz talks about tolerances, but when you're setting this up, you need to know how much that you can allow to be out of the number that's specified. For instance, if this says a 1/4 inch root opening, how much smaller can it be, or how much larger can it be, and it still pass the visual examination? Down here it says fractions, plus or minus 1/16 of an inch. So for your 1/4 inch, it can be a 1/16 of an inch larger or 1/16 of an inch smaller. Your angular angles or your angular dimensions. Okay, 45-degree included angle. This says that it could be plus 10 degrees or it could be minus 5 degrees. So that would be your variables. Let's see, I think that's probably good on that, but you'll need to reference this document all the way through your lesson. Figure out where I put that. All right, that was, now we're going to go over Table 1. Table 1, Level 1, Program Structure. Okay, this is your program structure. You're in the Sense program. Module 4, SMAW. To achieve your competency, how are you going to achieve your competency? First of all, there's a written test. Everybody's already taken that, or should have. Then you have a visual inspection and a destructive test. That's the guided bend test. So your verification or qualification by test and the competency addressed, we're going to have a written, you've already taken. You're going to do a visual inspection and a destructive test. Your written test has to be 75% minimum, and you must pass the visual inspection and the destructive test. That's just a little overview about why we might be doing this. This is part of your curriculum. Each student, not only should you score at least a 75% or more on your written test, but you also have to do a performance qualification test, and these are the documents we're going over today to try to help you get through that. That was Table 1, Table 2. Table 2. Let's see. We are looking for SMAW test plates. 3G. We're doing the 3G. Okay, you're going to use drawing number 6. You're going to use the WPS, AWS, EDU, SMAW-02. The material is going to be carbon steel, and you could also use an alternative WPS, but we're not going to use that. We're going to use the AWS document. Table 3, right below that. Table 3. If I wanted to succeed at something, I would want to make sure I knew what the requirements was for me to be successful. Here's the criteria, the visual inspection criteria for entry-level welders. Okay. This visual inspection takes place during your test. You're going to set your test up. I'll do a visual inspection on it. Then you'll weld it. We'll do a destructive test, and then we'll do another inspection after that. But basically, this says this has all the criteria that you need to know whether you passed or failed. It's right here. Okay, put it together. Look on the inspection criteria. You ought to know whether you passed or failed before I even come over there. Okay. Table 3. Let's look at Table 4. I think is our next document in your handout. Table 4 is the acceptance criteria for the face and root bends. So once we have fit it all together and we've done a visual inspection, now we're going to cut it apart, and this here is the acceptance criteria for once that we bend it. We're going to look at the outside surface of your bend. And on the outside surface of your bend, this document covers all the single discontinuities that's acceptable or not acceptable. This is important. Then we're going to go over, let's see, Figure 1. Figure 1. Figure 1 is important for once you start cutting your back straps out. You'll need to know how much radius to put on your piece. You need to read this about Figure 1. We'll use each one of these documents when we go through this. Annex A. This here is the actual form that I'm going to use while you're performing this. This is the form that's going to be used while I'm doing the visual inspection. We're going to be checking for the weld size, undercut, porosity, overlap, penetration, appearance, cracks. Then I'll have to sign it if you pass. Either way, we'll use this here for part of your grade as well. Annex B. So once we do the visual inspection, here's another form we're going to fill out. This here is going to, the top two is for the 2G, which we're not doing that today. We're doing 3G uphill. Okay. This here is a document for each one of your straps. Each one of them has to pass Figure 1 face and root bend test specimens. Here's where I document that. It tells me how much I need to document how much porosity or what kind of discontinuity it was, and what was the greatest sum of all discontinuities added up. That was Annex B. We're getting close here. Terms and definitions. This is also in your handouts. Maybe if you don't know some of these words we're talking about, here they are. Hold point. This is very important. On your 3G welding certification step-by-step procedure for preparing your certification test coupon, the biggest mistake I see a lot of the students doing is they just put their head down and just start welding. Okay, they slop it together. It's not put to print, and they make terrible welds, and they don't understand why. Okay, hold point. A hold point means that you go so far, and then you stop and you wait for me to come and check on it. Okay, refers to a delay in fabrication to permit inspection. When you're reading your procedure specification, you need to pay attention to the hold points. Stop at the hold points. Let me look at it. We'll inspect it, and that's part of your visual inspection too. There's no way I can do a visual inspection on the root pass or the filler passes if you bring me your piece and you've already got a cover pass on it. Nothing I can do about it. Do it again. That's all you can do. Procedures, specification, codes, heat affected zone, defect, discontinuity. What you need to know, read this and figure out the difference between a defect and a discontinuity. A discontinuity is any interruption in the typical structure. Okay, but just because it's a discontinuity doesn't necessarily mean that it's a defect. We're never going to make a perfect weld. There's always going to be a little something wrong with it, but how much can be wrong with it and it still be usable or still pass the test. Now let's go over your step-by-step procedure that's in your handout. I wrote this up, and we've been working on this for several years. Basically, it goes through. Let me put that on the board. You go through each step. Okay, I'm not going to read them to you right now. We'll go over them later. But each step, if you follow each step and stop whenever it tells you to stop at the hold point, and let me talk to you about it, and we'll check and see where you're at, it's really going to increase your ability to pass this test. Gives you a lot better chance. Okay? It's not about how much work you can do or how many you can do them. It's being able to do them right. And that's really what we want to do. I've seen a lot of students get out there and just put their head down and bang it up against the wall and still can't get it. And they get frustrated. Hopefully this will help you. Let's see. Probably in conclusion now for lesson 1, we went over the documents that's introduced in this 3G welding certification series. Each one of them is of importance. I know there's a lot of documents here, but you need to read through them, and you need to understand, because anytime you go somewhere to take a weld test, I know we're doing it here, but you'll take them throughout your career as a welder. The best chance you can have is you need to know what the test is, how to set it up, what rods to use, what parameters to set your rods at, what position you're in, and what's the criteria that you're going to be graded on. Okay, if I go somewhere to take a test, I want to know what I have to do to pass it. These documents will tell you. Then you need to develop your skill, and we'll go over that in lesson 2. We'll start breaking this step-by-step procedure down into 5 more lessons. Okay, and hopefully you'll get a good understanding of it. Thank you very much.